So this is a Q&A. Q's go first. So please feel free to ask whatever you like.
I have a couple of questions, but one, I was thinking, in the Sangha, one thing we are supposed to do is to give and receive admonitions.
Yeah.
Can you explain
Oh.
a little bit what it is? I know it's a big topic,
Yeah.
but in a nutshell, a little bit, how you do it?
How we do it. Okay. So, the word that's written in the translation is admonition, and that word kind of gets some people a little bit like this. So I think it's better to say like advice or support in your training. Yeah, because we usually think admonition is, and that's not what we're here to do to each other. We're here to support and advise and encourage. Yeah. So it's, in the Vinaya that we're encouraged to do that because, why did we take precepts? Because we are imperfect beings with faults and flaws, and we want to become Buddhas. So we sometimes are totally oblivious to our own problems, our own faults, our own mistakes. And so it can be very helpful when other people point them out. Yeah. So, but we don't point them out with a pointed finger, blaming the other person, because we're Dharma practitioners. And so we understand that when there's a problem, both people have something to do with it. It's not that one person is the bad person that did something wrong and everybody else is so virtuous. But when we have a problem with somebody or we see somebody do something that's really unbecoming for a monastic, to look in our own mind first and to ask ourselves, why is this bothering me? Because we all have very judgmental, critical minds. Excuse me if I say that. Yeah? Everybody here have a judgmental, critical mind? Anybody not have one? Yeah. Some of you aren't saying there. You're sitting there looking so virtuous, like little angels. Are we little angels inside of our mind? Our mind is a mess, isn't it? And we see something we don't like. What? This cup has yellow on it. I don't like yellow. It should be purple, And why did they do it like this? Whose fault is this? Who painted the cup this way? And so there can be tiny things, and we just get like so crazy about it, And we have to tell everybody everything they did that we don't like. And then when you hear that you're supposed to admonish each other, it's like, yeah, I'm supposed to admonish them, and they did this, and they did that, and they did the other thing. And I'm pointing it out to them for their own benefit because I am so compassionate. Right? Yeah, that's what we do. And how does the other person react when we say that? Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind. Huh? No. The other person says, yeah, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You're accusing me of what you do. And plus, you do this and this and this and this. And we take out our whole list of things that the other person has done from years ago. And we, yeah, right? Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like some of this doesn't apply to some of you. Yeah, yeah. Some of you very pure minds, not like me. Yeah, not like me with all sorts of garbage going on inside. So, yeah, so of course, it's the Buddha in the sutras talk when you have one person with afflictions and another person with afflictions, what's going to happen? Yeah, we know what happened. Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah. But this is how we learn. This is how we learn. And we all go through up and down points where sometimes our afflictions are like really manifest, and we don't want to talk about them, and other people point them out, and you're just always so critical, always doing this, leave me alone. Yeah. So this is all. I mean, we're ordinary sentient beings, and so it's important when stuff happens to realize that we're all doing our best. Yeah, that doesn't mean we're all perfect. It means whatever we're capable of at that particular moment, that is our best. And we do that. And we're all practitioners. So we all have the same spiritual aspirations and want to become Buddhas. So we trust each other. Yeah, that person's doing their best. They're a sentient being with faults, with problems, just like me, but they're doing what they're able to do at this moment. Yeah. And so that builds a kind of trust amongst us. Yeah, that we're all going in the same direction, and we're trying to help each other, not tear each other down. Yeah. I mean, what's the use of tearing somebody else down? What good does it do? Hello? Does it do any good? No, yeah. So, especially as people with the same purpose in our lives, the same kind of spiritual yearning, yeah, following the same or similar teachings. We're all disciples of the Buddha. And so knowing people are trying and they're doing their best. Yeah. So, the admonition or the advice, the encouragement part, sometimes you have to suss out a situation and, see when is a good time to talk to somebody. And then also to ask yourself, am I the best person to talk to that person? Yeah. And sometimes this kind of thing is very good to do at posada, sojung, because at sojung, at least the way we do it, is everybody goes around and admits the precepts that they've transgressed for the last 2 weeks. And then people will often just talk about their state of mind and, how they've been. So just to give you an example of something about this, how admonition or, giving advice, pointing things out happens when somebody doesn't own something. But when you're going around, you need a tissue. Yeah. When you're doing posada, then as you go around, everybody admits, I did this, I did that, whatever. And then if there's things also between people that feel uncomfortable, that there was some problem in the kitchen or some problem, where people had some uncomfortable interchange or exchange, I should say, then we would bring that up. So, for example, and this has happened in our community. Well, first of all, everybody gets in bad moods, right? Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Everybody gets in bad moods. You don't get in a bad mood? You don't get in a bad mood? Yeah, I know your bad moods. Yeah. How about people on the side? You get in bad moods? Oh. So I'm thinking of Venerable Tarpa here because she's very open. When she's in a bad mood, then in Sojung, when we're going around, she'll say something to the extent like, oh, the last couple of weeks I've been in a really bad mood. I've been very short-tempered, and some of you have been the object of my anger, and I'm really sorry. Yeah. And so she owns her mood, she owns her unkind speech, yeah. And when she does that, then everybody else kind of puts their palms together and says, thank you, and, we know you're trying hard, and like that, okay? When somebody doesn't want to acknowledge their own things, then it usually comes up. And if this person here was in a bad mood and was speaking harshly, somebody else here that maybe they spoke harshly to might say, well, when we were in the kitchen and I put the knife, the forks away in this place, you got really mad at me because I put the forks in the wrong place. I should have put the forks over here, and so somebody else has to say something, yeah. If you say something, you have to do it with a motivation of kindness, a motivation to help that person, because they're not aware of how they're speaking or whatever. So it's really important beforehand to check your motivation and think, okay, somebody's been in a bad mood, they've been angry. I have to, point out an incident that happened, but I do it because I care about that person and I respect them as a practitioner, and I want them to be able to go forward, in their practice. And so you check it, you check your own motivation, and then you say something. And the way you say it makes a big difference. If you're angry, it comes out as anger. It comes out in the tone of your voice, in the volume of your voice, and the words you use. Yeah. But if you're clear and like, okay, something happened, and I reacted to it. I put the forks in the wrong place. This person got upset and said, don't you know where the forks are already, or whatever. And then I got defensive right away when that person said that to me, and I responded. Then, when I, in Posada, say something, then the way I would say it was, when I put the forks in the wrong place, I thought it was the right place, and it wasn't, and so you said something to me that sounded harsh to my ears. Yeah, it sounded harsh to my ears, and I'm sorry for what I did, and like that. And then that person instantly, who didn't admit their problem before, will usually respond something to the effect of, thank you for saying that. I was in a bad mood and I just was taking it out on everybody. Yeah. Because in every situation where people aren't getting along, there's two sides to it. Yeah, there's one side maybe that's on the attack mode, and the other side that receives it and then wants to attack back. Yeah. But if we, and these situations happen all day, but then afterwards or at posada, if you're the person who attacked, if you admit that, then nobody else has to say anything to you because you admitted it. If you're on the receiving end and you're getting defensive, then the best way or one way to do it with the other person is saying, when you said this to me, I got defensive. Yeah. And I know my defensiveness is my problem. But those words sounded harsh to me. Okay. So that's very different. Saying those words sounded harsh to me is very different than saying, you always criticize me. Yeah. So it's a thing of, settling our own mind and then figuring out how to say something to somebody in a skillful manner. And this is the kind of thing that the Buddha wanted, whereby we, own things ourselves and we can point things out to others without directly accusing them and criticizing them. Yeah. So it takes a lot of practice to do this because we are ordinary beings and we're very habituated with, if somebody does something we don't like, to get like this. And if we're the object of somebody else's speech, then get like this. Yeah. So we, and then the thing is, when those situations happen just in the course of our life, they become our daily practice. Shantideva's chapter 6 isn't just theory for some other person to practice. Yeah, but it's what I need to do and what I do in my meditation, is to bring up these things and then check my own mind and how did I react and what affliction arose in my mind and how can I talk to this person afterwards in a way that will mend the relationship.
Can I add something, another question? Do you have a certain way of, you said that these issues get addressed in Sojo, but are there also other ways that you have in the community where you address these issues? Is there a procedure that you have? I think Dignitas says you have to talk within 24 hours with the person.
You have to what?
You have to talk within 24 hours with the person when something has happened. Do you have certain rules like that?
It's a rule you have to talk with them within 24 hours?
I think Thich Nhat Hanh uses that.
Okay, well, I'm not Thich Nhat Hanh, so I do things a little bit differently.
It's just an example.
Yeah.
It was an example.
Okay.
So what I'm asking you, if there is a kind of a rule within Sravasti Abbey, how you do that? Is it only during Sojo?
No, whenever you need to. Yeah, whenever you feel ready to talk about it with somebody, then you go to them and say, can I talk to you about something that happened between us? Yeah, no, I don't say, it's a rule within 24 hours. It is now 23 hours and 59 minutes and you haven't done anything. No. Okay. Sometimes, if it's somebody that you're actually quite good friends with and something happens, sometimes you just need to give them space, or yourself take space. You know, when somebody needs space, I don't push it because they're not ready to listen. Yeah. The psychologists talk about something, I think it's called a refractory period, whereby if somebody is like really entrenched and attached to something, they cannot take in any information that disagrees with them. So when somebody is in that mood and really defensive, really guarded, yeah, I just let them be, yeah, and let them cool off and take as much time as it's needed. And then when they're cooler and they seem more receptive, then bring it up and talk about it. Yeah. Yeah. No, we don't have rules about this. We
Guidelines.
yeah, guidelines. Yeah. But yeah, because the thing is, every situation is different. Every person is different. So you have to develop a certain kind of sensitivity. First of all, to recognize your own stuff. That's the first thing we have to do. And then, you know, figure out how to address it with the other person. Yeah. But if we're upset, the first thing to do is look here. Yeah. That's not what we usually do. Yeah. We're upset and like, okay, you. And you know, and that never ends well.
First of all, thank you to explain this about the sojong that you do, because this to me is real sojong, what we do normally. And I ask you to jump on various times, we just recite some stuff that we've done everything bad under the sun, and then finish. But that's,
Yeah,
so this is really nice.
Yeah. The Tibetan one is, yeah, oh, I've broken everything. So then you don't own anything. Yeah. So we, you know, go around and we talk, you know, we usually confess to this. First of all, the seniors confess to each other, and then we join the big group, and then everybody confesses in a group because we're not a large number of people. And then we break up into one senior and then the three who then do the formula that's in the sojong. Okay, and then after that we do the actual sojong with the recitation of the precepts.
Really lovely. To me, that's just so genuine.
Yeah, well, this is the way the Buddha set it up.
Yeah, but why isn't it?
The Tibetans, they have their own way of doing things. I once asked some Tibetan monks that question, what, you know, about do you ever kind of advise each other beforehand? And his response was, well, we tried doing that, but all we did was argue. So we decided it was more peaceful not to say anything. Yeah. That was his, maybe the other monks feel differently. But, you know, this is the way the Buddha set it up. And also it has to do if, you know, and this is how the bhikshunis practice. So if you're, you know, a shikshamana or a shramaneri, then, you know, you may not be taught the Vinaya and this whole thing about how people do things, how the sojong goes.
Are you all bhikshunis or bhikshus?
We have 18 bhikshunis, yeah, and 4 shikshamana. The shikshamana is the intermediate ordination between shramaneri and bhikshuni. Yeah, so we have. For the women, we have 2 shikshamanas. Yeah, 2 shikshamanas. For the men, we have 1 bhikshu and 3 shramaneras. Yeah. So the women confess to the women. We don't confess to the men, and the men confess to the men, not to the women. Yeah. So it's done differently. You aren't as a shramaneri, with all the little boys rushing into the temple, getting trampled on, trying to say this thing in Tibetan that you don't understand and get out of there as fast as possible while they trample you again. Yeah, we
know that.
yeah, you know that, huh? Yeah, if you've been in Dharamsala, yeah.
So how long does it take, the sojung?
Our whole sojung, usually almost an hour and 45 or 2 hours, something like that. Yeah.
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks.
Yes, on new and full moon days. Yeah.
There is a separation between the bhikshunis and the
The
others, yeah.
shikshamanas.
So there's no opportunity for mutual confession like that.
Well, all the
Here.
No.
Yeah.
Here, it says.
Here, yeah. So it's very nice to hear you talking like that. But I don't think we can apply it here because, like Irene says, we're just following the Tibetan method.
Yeah, but that's how the Tibetans do it. You are free to add more to the sojung ceremony, and do it as you wish. Because the actual sojung ceremony, is, just the reading of the precepts and reciting the formulas. And you're supposed to have beforehand, talked about things. But just because the Tibetans don't doesn't mean you can't.
Here, most of the nuns, they are Getsul.
Yeah.
Getsul monks, so they do the sojourn in Nalanda, the monks. And a few of us who are Gelongas, we do our own. Like, we follow the same like Sravasti.
Yeah, you have 4 bhikshunis?
Sometimes we have 4, sometimes we have 3.
Yeah. Because what you can do is with us, the shikshamanas, or if we have some shramaneris there, they confess to the bhikshunis, not to the bhikshus. And that's the way it's supposed to be in the Vinaya, because the Tibetans don't have bhikshuni sangha, then, the women go and do the sojung with the men. But actually, you're supposed to do it with the bhikshunis. So what you could do is before, if you want to continue to go over there, then you do what I just described. You can still do that amongst yourselves. And then after that, the shramaneris, if you want to go to Nalanda, that's fine. And the bhikshunis can stay here and do theirs. Yeah. I mean, just because the Tibetans don't do it that way doesn't mean you can't. It's actually more authentic and according to Vinaya. Yeah. And everybody must go to sojung unless you're sick or unless you're doing something for the Sangha. And if, in those 2 cases, if somebody's not going to sojung, then they have to confess to somebody who is going to sojung, and then also say, I approve of whatever the Sangha decides during this meeting. Yeah, that's for the bhikshunis, what they do. Yeah. So, yeah, see, the Tibetans don't teach so much about Vinaya. Yeah, and they have a joke. Well, they think it's a joke. I think it's kind of sad. But when you take the precepts, you don't know what they are because you're young. But by the time you get older, and you've studied the precepts, then you don't have them anymore. Yeah, ha 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 ha. No, it's not so funny. It's kind of sad. Yeah.
Enfin, personnellement, je trouve ça dommage que justement les moniales, elles n'ont pas de cours de Vinaya. À Nalanda, bon, les moines ont des cours de Vinaya, de quelle langue mais nous, pas du tout, enfin, il n'y a même pas une approche, ni quoi que ce soit. Et enfin, pour moi, c'est vraiment regrettable.
She feels it's quite sad because the Getsul, they don't have Vinaya classes. We don't have any teaching on Vinaya. So in Nalanda, the Gelongs they have some, but the Getsul they don't have any teaching on Vinaya. She regrets this.
Yeah, see that's the thing. Sometimes just the culture of the place, they don't teach that, they overlook it. But when we set up the Abbey, we really wanted to go back and do the Vinaya rites the way the Buddha set it up. Yeah. And it's incredible when you do that. It's so unifying, the energy of everybody being together, confessing and restoring their precepts, clearing things up, and then just reciting the precepts and doing all the chanting during the ceremony. It's very moving. And we all come out feeling very good ourselves, but we feel like we're a group, and very much our purpose. One big element of our purpose at the Abbey is to not only establish the Dharma in the West, but to establish the Sangha in the West. Yeah, and to have the Sangha be a unified community of people that really help and support each other. The Chinese give the example of if you look in a forest, most of the trees, when they're close together, they all grow in the same direction. Yeah. But when there's just one tree here and one tree there and one tree there, what happens when the strong wind comes? They crack and they fall down. So it's similar when we practice together with other monastics, everybody's growing straight. Yeah. When we go off and we do our own thing, because we're samsaric beings and we don't see our own faults, and we often see them and don't want to admit them, then, we wind up crashing in our practice. Yeah. So there's a lot of power when you really can practice together as a community and support each other like this. Yeah. And it develops over time. Yeah. Over time. It's not like you do it one time and wham. Yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think the fact also that in the Tibetan tradition you don't have Gelongas, you don't have bhikshunis.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
the
makes it like
problem.
that also, like in that teaching sometime, for the Gelongs, there are no Gelongas. So we get some of us who are ordained bhikshunis, we get from the Dharmagupta.
Yeah.
So we do our sojourn like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
you
don't know,
should.
because now there are some who take in the Mula Sravasti. Now there's some ordination in Bhutan, and it's a Mula Sravasti.
Vada, yeah.
So that means we are going to be bhikshunis of different traditions.
Yeah. But
Doesn't matter.
that's, yeah. As far as I know, the bhikshunis in Bhutan haven't gotten a lot of Vinaya teachings, from what I've understood from people.
Have not.
Have not, yeah. But yeah, we follow different Vinaya traditions, but what is the reason? Because the Tibetan monks have whatever reason they have for saying you can't become a bhikshuni. But some of us go and we take it, And the thing is, in the Chinese tradition, the Dharmaguptaka tradition, your ordination isn't just you go in and then you come out an hour or an hour and a half later, and that's it. No, you go there, and then the program is usually either a month or the one that we send our people to is 6 weeks. So it's really cool because you rehearse the ceremony so that you know what you're saying and what you're doing in the ceremony. And then there's a lot of teachings in there too. And then they make sure that you are going back after the ordination, because they'll have big ordinations with a few hundred people, that you go back to your own temple and that there's, with your teacher, and that your teacher continues to teach about the Vinaya. Yeah.
So where?
This is in Taiwan. Yeah. Yeah.
We receive also in Nalanda, and here also we do 6 months preparation with usually we use video of Vinaya preparation for the ordination, so we don't learn of course the vows, but we get prepared, we learn how to dress the robes, we learn how about the ceremony and the general rules. So we are kind of very fortunate because in Dorje, Palmo and Nalanda we could be trained before the ceremony. But maybe it's rare, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is something that you need to learn from other people. It doesn't just pop in your mind. Yeah. Yeah. And then we have Vinaya class once a week as well. Yeah. And
sometimes you have some trainings.
Yeah.
Other people can join.
yes.
She would like to know, when you have a Vinaya class, it's only for Bhikshuni, also for Getsulma?
Everybody. Yeah. Because the way Venerable Wu Yin, who's one of our Chinese bhikshunis who has taught us, she was the one, at the Abbey, and also life as a Western Buddhist nun. Yeah. And so she said that everybody can listen to the teachings, because we really feel that, first of all, when you're a lay person, you need a lot of preparation before you actually become a monastic. And then when you are a novice, when you have shramaneri or shikshamana, then you need a lot of preparation, a lot of teachings before you become a bhikshuni. So it's not just going there for the ordination and saying what you're supposed to say, and okay, now I'm a bhikshuni, and your behavior doesn't change, and you don't know anything more about Vinaya than you did before. It's not like that. Yeah, the Chinese really kind of want you to have a good education about that. And it's very interesting how the Vinaya fits with our general Dharma practice. Yeah, they go very closely together because, what are we doing in our practice is we're trying to subdue our afflictions. When our afflictions take over and run the show, we have transgressions. Or even there's things that are not listed in the Vinaya as a transgression. In our society, our culture, it is something unbecoming. So we talk about that and we confess that. Yeah. So, a lot of people say, oh, well, the precepts, they don't apply today. Yeah, they're so old. The bhikshunis have a precept, you can't eat garlic. The story behind that doesn't make any sense. We can't ride in vehicles, but everybody rides in vehicles. We're not supposed to eat afternoon, but so many people do. We're not supposed to this, but everybody does. Actually, if you really, the way we practice Vinaya is we'll look at a precept, and every precept has a story behind it about what happened that made the Buddha set up that precept. Yeah, because none of the precepts did Buddha just make off the top of his head. There was always an event, and somebody acted like a jerk, and it was reported to the Buddha, and then the Buddha made a precept. And then sometimes something else happened, and the precept needed some exceptions according to the culture or the situation. Okay, so what we do when we study the precepts is, we read it, and then we often talk about the story behind it, or we just look at the precept and like, okay, what affliction is this precept hitting? Yeah. What affliction is it addressing? And so here's the connection with our regular Dharma practice, with Lamrim, with thought training, because Lamrim and thought training are, what we meditate on to reduce the energy of the afflictions. So the precepts really help point things out. So, for example, the precept not to ride in a vehicle. Yeah, none of us would be here if we didn't ride in vehicles. Yeah, and you couldn't do your Dharma work of teaching and, doing things if you didn't ride in vehicles. So we look at the story. At the time of the Buddha, it was only the emperor or very, very important people or rich merchants who rode in a vehicle. Okay, so that's one thing. Second of all, the vehicles they rode in were pulled by animals or other people. This is ancient India. Even now in Bodh Gaya, things are pulled by animals and people in the rickshaws. Okay, so when the Buddha said, that his Sangha doesn't ride in vehicles unless somebody's ill, then what's the purpose? Well, the purpose is not to be arrogant, because you're not a wealthy merchant, you're not a king, you're not royalty, so you're not on your vehicle being all puffed up. So how do we apply that now? Well, if sometimes, the people invite you to give a teaching and they drive you. So don't say to them, yeah, bring your Mercedes Benz when you pick me up. Yeah, you don't say that. You don't even look at the kind of car you're getting in, so you don't develop any arrogance about that. And then also we ride in cars, not things that are pulled by people. Yeah. So, we're still, I think, keeping the meaning of that precept. Yeah. I brought up the thing about the precept not to eat garlic. The story behind that one is really interesting. There was a nun who was walking, and there was a farmer who grew garlic, and he saw her and he paid his respect to her. And he said, if you ever want some garlic, you're welcome to come and pick it from my field, and you can bring some of your nun friends if they want something too. Fine. So that nun goes back to the monastery, and she tells everybody, oh, this farmer's giving us garlic. So they all go there. They pick all the garlic in the field. Yeah, it's gone. Well, the farmer's not very happy. So the Buddha hears about this. Yeah. So what is the precept that is being targeted here? What do you think it is? What's the mental affliction? Greed. Yeah, greed, attachment. I want more. I want better, more, better, more, better. Yeah, that's what it was targeting. So, we don't eat garlic, but, we try and be very considerate. And when sponsors ask, do you need something? You just say it very simply. You don't ask for a lot. You don't, do all of this. You try and reform your greed. That's how you keep the precept, by dealing with your own greed and attachment. Okay.
What about, there's a precept that you shouldn't bathe or wash more than every 2 weeks? No, the thing is that I've known monks in the past that would do it because they say, yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to go around them, huh? Okay.
It's a precept that you shouldn't wash more than every 2 weeks or something.
So some people say that only applies to the Ganges plain. Some people say that. But, our culture is different. Yeah. And so many of the precepts were made because the Sangha, did things that were offensive to the lay people or inconsiderate of the lay people. So, if none of us bathed and we didn't wear deodorant, what would the lay people say? Nobody would come to teachings. They couldn't bear to be around us. Yeah, they wouldn't have a good impression. It would be very offensive. So, yes, we bathe, yeah, and we use deodorant, unscented deodorant, yeah, because that conforms to our culture. And if the Buddha were alive now, if we didn't bathe and use deodorant, boy, he would hear a lot of complaints. Okay. Then there's other things situations that we have now that were not present at the time of the Buddha. But I think if the Buddha were alive now, he would definitely make precepts about some of these things. Okay? What?
Phones.
Phones. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. Phones, definitely. Yeah. Smartphones are a real, they're a problem in monasteries. Yeah. So in our place, nobody has their own phone. Nobody. We have some phones that belong to the monastery that if somebody is going into town to go shopping, or like while we're traveling now, he has a phone. I don't touch phones. I don't know how to work them, and I don't want to. Okay? Because they're quite addictive and very distracted. But we have these ones that belong to the monastery so that if somebody's going out, if you get a flat tire and you need help, or somebody just remembered, oh, you're going to town, we also need XYZ, they can call and tell you. Okay. Yeah, but no personal phones. Yeah. And you know what? It's incredible. You can really live without a phone. Really, I know you don't believe me. I know you think I'm talking rubbish, but you can really, and you can be happy without a phone. And you know what? Sometimes you're even happier without a phone. Personally speaking, I do not want to be available at all hours of the day and night. Yeah, I don't want people calling me at this time and that time. I don't want, when I wake up, what are we supposed to think when we first wake up? Oh, where's my phone? I got to check, see if there's any new messages. No, we're supposed to generate our motivation to not harm, to be of benefit. Yeah, but you see people with phones, that's the first thing they do in the morning is check their phone. Last thing at night, check their phone. And is there any time, anything that is important that you needed to know at that moment? Yeah? I don't think so.
Well, it's useful enough to communicate when there's teachings or when something changed, or so that's different.
Yeah, but if the teaching times and things are posted on the internet, then you know what time they are and people announce it beforehand. If there's a change, then you have a regular phone in the monastery. Somebody can call there, tell one person, and then that one person announces it. Yeah, we really don't need our own phones. Yeah, because when you have your own phone, your whole world becomes this big, and then you're like, that's what people cross the street. They don't even look where they're going. And what are they doing? If you look over someone's shoulder, they're just scrolling through their photos, scrolling through their messages. Nothing new is coming in. Nothing important is happening. Yeah. And then people don't talk to people. Yeah. Or what I see people do is you make an appointment, okay? We're going to go out and have tea together. So everybody goes out, sits down, you order your tea, and then everybody takes out their phone and puts it in front of them. And as soon as there's some little thing, you pick up your phone. Yeah. And then you're making appointments. You're with this group of people having tea, making appointments to meet another people later to have tea with them. But when you're there with a real living being, you don't talk to them. Yeah. And so then people become lazy. They're lonely, I mean. Lonely, yeah, and they don't know how to talk to human beings anymore. And yet, so much of our life is about connecting with real life human beings, especially we're Mahayana practitioners, all sentient beings. We want to lead each and every sentient being to a full awakening, yeah. But we can't talk to them because we're, doing that. It's
Talk about, I'm sorry, I'm taking over here, but
Yeah, go ahead.
talking about being Mahayana, so people are living, it's 18 nuns, yeah, and it's a bunch of people living in the monastery. How about if somebody really finds, if somebody just can't stand somebody else?
somebody does what?
If somebody really doesn't like someone else, maybe accent or whatever, so
Okay.
like,
You want to answer that one? See, this is what I also do, is after you build up trust with people, you put them on the spot. But, yeah, what do you do?
And we have courses, we have classes about NVC. I don't know if you know about NVC, nonviolent communication. This is something where we learn to talk about difficult things or people with difficulty with in a way that's not attacking or not pointing your finger out. So you always start with your needs and feelings. So that's a very useful tool that we use. This thing about leaving a lot of space is very useful. I've been through a lot of challenges with one particular person in the community. So sometimes they're just not ready or you're not ready. So I think it's very important to just cut them some slack. That's okay, they can be who they are, you can be who you are, but at some point you need to reconnect because it becomes so obvious in the community, something is not going right, even if it's just two persons, the whole group feels it. It's awkward, you have lunch, it's awkward, there's always awkwardness in the air, so what I found very useful is getting someone else involved. So you ask a senior or someone who's really good at like, how do you call that? Mediation, yeah. So you bring that third person, but you ask the other person too if they're like willing to enter maybe a conversation with someone else. Sit down and you make sure of little details that don't force them. That's the most important thing. But I think bringing a third person was one of the most useful things that I found, just to make that happen. Because people behave differently when they're with a third person. They might really dislike you, but they start behaving when there's someone else witnessing what's happening. They kind of cool down a little bit. I don't know, that's just some ideas.
it works
There are some
Yeah.
that changes.
Yeah.
But what if they won't? What if they won't?
Was that?
What if they won't
Qu'est-ce qui se passe si
accept?
Well, I don't want to. I won't expose the whole situation, but we had there was someone I was never talking to in the community that just, we had very, very difficult relation, and I talked maybe once or twice in a year and a half with him. And like after winter retreat, we have this thing called pravarana. So this is one of the main rituals that the Buddha established, where we give feedbacks to one another, and we can address the big things in the community, making sure that we clear the slate and everybody is okay with one another. And that was brought out in front of everyone, and that was difficult. I won't lie, it was difficult, but that was brought out. And at some point there was some opening, and now we're walking on it. So that had to be pushed, but in a context where people felt secure to do so.
Well, you create a culture in a monastery, and you constantly remind people, this is not a boarding house for monastics. We are a community. We are people who live together, work together, care about each other, support each other in our practice. So you have to have that, create that kind of culture, that kind of feeling amongst the people. And that's really up to whoever is the leader to talk about that a lot, and to really encourage people that this is our vision. We're not just a boarding house where everybody has their own room and goes out, comes and goes when they want to, eats what they want to, buys their own food when they want to. But no, we have a common purpose and common activities, and we're working together. So when you have that kind of thing and it's been built up, you talk about that a lot, so people have that in their minds. Then if there's two people who aren't getting along, everybody notices it. Yeah. And yeah, like he said in our last pravarana, it was brought up, and it was interesting that the two people who weren't getting along, a third person brought it up and said, you two people are not getting along, and it's really influencing the community. And then there began more discussion about their relationship and what they find, what is difficult for each one of them in the relationship. Yeah. Also, we have one nun who is a therapist, and so she's very good when, people get really upset or with something or need a private consultation. They'll go to her, or sometimes they'll talk with me.
I was going to say that it's great if a third person can bring it up, but if no one brings it up, and it's very difficult to to move the situation on.
You mean
Not
if
feeling supported, actually. I just like to bounce off what you say of the environment not being a cherishing, nourishing environment in which people care about each other sufficiently to even begin with offering gentle advice. What happens if there is no cherishing environment?
Then what happens? Then you're out in the cold, aren't you? Yeah, but it's the responsibility of everybody there to try and create this kind of feeling of common purpose and common support. It's not, I said, it's the leader who mostly talks about this, but it's the responsibility of every person in the community to embody that kind of teaching, and then to try and live that way with the other people. Yeah.
Because another thing that's come up quite a bit recently is the importance of respecting the hierarchy. And Karen Geshe Chuni the other weekend even talked about equality being a problem or leading to problems. Okay. And this is something that will also come up. The gecko at Nalanda, who's Jamyang, also asked, how can I be a gecko when it's actually the seniors who are the most difficult to talk to? And from reading Lama Yeshe's advice to monks and nuns, this is not from yesterday, this has been going on for decades. That there's a problem with respecting the hierarchy, and yet the hierarchy.
See, this is a thing. Everybody has to understand what hierarchy means and what respect means, okay? Hierarchy just means the date of your ordination and where you sit. How long you have been ordained. It does not mean you know more, you are wiser, or anything like that. It's just by the date of your ordination. Now, it so happens that after you're around for a while, most people develop some qualities and learn something and become easier to talk to for other people. So there is reason to respect people who were ordained before us, because hopefully if they've been practicing well, they are hopefully mellower than us, and they want to help us. I once asked, when I was a novice, I once asked one of the monks kind of why they don't say anything to the younger ones and help them and stuff. And their response was, well, because, when you try and say something to them, they just get mad. They don't want to listen to it. Okay. So all of this really comes back to creating the feeling that we are a community with a common purpose. Spiritual purpose, going to Buddhahood, temporary purpose, supporting each other in practice, and and serving the laity. So you need to create that kind of feeling, and and you need to have a group of people who have been practicing for a while to do that. Now, with people in the West who ordain, everybody's new. It's not like, when we started lifted Dorje Palmo starting in 1982, let's see, I was ordained 1982. I was ordained 5 years. Venerable SK was ordained 8 years. We were the seniors. We knew, everything was brand new. And we made some guidelines and some rules for the monastery, and it was going nicely. But then, one of the lamas said, oh, you shouldn't have so many guidelines and don't make it too tight. People will get upset. So we loosened it, and then people didn't get along. It's quite interesting. It's the difference between Tibetan culture and Western culture. And so you need to start out with these guidelines and then really discuss common purpose again and again. I mean, we do it all the time, don't we? And about how to handle your own inner conflicts and your conflict with other people. It's discussed, in teachings. It's when we have the thing where before lunch every day, somebody gives us a short talk. So at the very beginning, it was me, and I was kind of talking about these things. Now everybody gives a short talk, except for somebody who is too shy about that. See, I told you I put them on the spot. But this is part of the training, and there's the trust where I can do that. If I did that with one of you, you'd probably explode. But Yeah, I know him well, and there's trust, so I can do that. Anyway, yeah, so it has to be built up, and yeah, coming back to hierarchy. Okay, there's a few things to say here. So there's things on both sides when there's problems with it. I've seen some people. I once saw one bhikshuni say to somebody, I'm a bhikshuni and you shouldn't talk to me like that. That is not the way a senior should talk to a junior. Absolutely not. Because we're supposed to, nourish the juniors and help them and, and do something good. You don't put them down and act like you're queen of the country or something, and everybody should bow down, You're not Trump, for goodness sake. Yeah. So first of all, the seniors should not act like that. Second of all, from the side of the juniors, if a senior tells you something, it's very interesting to watch. And this applies to both juniors and seniors, everybody, Westerners, okay? When somebody tells you to do something, I am an independent person and nobody bosses me around, including you, And this is a feature of our Western culture, but it's a big problem. And this is why there's so much disharmony, because people have this kind of air.
Some people you cannot ask anything of them, and so there's no communication. You just carry out your daily life without asking them anything because you cannot ask them.
Then you have to make the first move.
Sorry?
You have to make the first move.
Yes, but you don't.
Everything I say, you say yes, but. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, I completely accept what you're saying.
Yeah, but
I'm just giving our experience.
Yes, and I've had that experience too. And my experience is when it's like that, I have to make more effort. And when we had the Enlightenment Experience Celebration, 1982, Lama brought us all together, okay? Like 200, 300 people, something like that. And I made a determination at the beginning of that I was going to have a good discussion with every single person there during the months we were together. I gave myself that assignment, because as we know, the Sangha has different personalities and we have different interests and in many other ways of our life, but we come together because we have this spiritual interest, okay? So I made it my business to have a good discussion with everybody. Now, the thing is, you say, well, we don't have anything in common, nothing to discuss. But I discovered that if I tried and I spent a little bit of time with that person, maybe the initial topics we brought up didn't go. But if I stayed with it, we would find something to talk about. Okay? And, so if nobody's talking and you're one of those people, then you have to make the effort. And you keep trying. Sometimes the other person isn't ready, or they give a one-sentence answer and that's it, Other times, you can bring out things that you have in common. Sometimes it's helpful if you see that the other person has a certain behavior and you have that certain behavior or that certain affliction too, just to bring it up and talk about, gee, I was looking at, somebody said something to me the other day, and I got so defensive. My whole attachment to reputation and attachment to praise, my buttons got pushed. And you just say that to the other person. What you do by opening in that way is you are opening the door for them to tell you something about themselves. Yeah, so that's one way to do it. Another way is to talk about something that happened in the community. Oh, did you see, yeah, the Buddha Hall, we just finished a Buddha Hall. Yeah. Oh, it flooded last night because a pipe in the attic, above the ceiling froze, and it burst, and then it flowed. And wow, I was up in the middle of the night shoveling water, sweeping water out. How did you do? We were both there doing it. How did you feel about that? So you just talk about some common experience that you both had. Yeah. So it's not that difficult, if you make the effort. Or another thing that's really good, is because nobody is all bad. People in our culture like to say somebody is evil, they're horrible, they're disgusting, they're corrupt, cancel them, get out of here. Nobody is like that. Everybody has the Buddha nature. How can we look at any sentient being and say, oh, they're so cold and aloof and arrogant, or they're always so depressed, they're so critical. Yeah, nobody's always like that. Yeah. So you look at somebody and something they do well, you tell them, you just make a simple comment, Gee, I like the way you set up the gompa before our activities. Like that. You just notice something that they do well, because everybody does things well, and you comment on it. And in your meditation, you practice noting to yourself that person's good qualities. In your meditation, oh, this person is good, does this well, does that well, does the other thing well. And then if you get jealous, that is your problem. You take out Shantideva, chapter 6. He has a lot of antidotes for jealousy there. And you practice those in your meditation. Okay? And then you see, oh yeah, that person does have some good qualities. Yeah. And you know what? They're better than me in some areas. And that's something to respect. And I can comment on that. Not flowery, with all this gooey language, but you just thank them for what they do, or say, oh, I noticed that you do that with really a lot of care, and I appreciate that. Whatever it is. Yeah. If you make the effort, somebody will respond. Yeah. But if we say, they're cold, they don't like me, they never talk to me, so I don't like them either. Yeah, then you're going to live your whole life like that. Are you happy living like that?
I just want to say something about letting go. It's a very famous thing, isn't it? And I'm very fortunate that Geshe we kind of see a lot of each other. And sometimes I get really annoyed with him, and sometimes he gets his Tibetan thing, really, his ideas are not mine. And I take that back home and I thought, that's it. The next day I said, Geshe, he said, yeah, what? He's totally forgotten about it. It's letting go. It's just incredible, this ability. I can't do it, but he just...
Whereas, there's one small thing, and then you think, oh, this is my whole relationship with that person. That's totally unrealistic. Yeah, it's totally unrealistic.
Weren't you angry? He says, well, yes, but it's gone now. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Amazing.
Yeah, it's gone. It's in the past. You don't have to cling to it. And you don't have to make that the what is it, the QR code for every time you see that person. That's what you see. That's not who that person is. It's just one incident in the life that our mind latches onto, and then, gives ourselves the permission to take them. Oh, look, they did that. Yeah, they did that. They didn't put the forks where they belong in the kitchen. Oh, and I'm sure they were doing it because I was responsible for the kitchen that day, and they did it to spite me. I know they did that deliberately. Ooh, I can't stand that person. And what do? You have a court with a judge and a prosecutor, all in here. That person is the defendant, but they don't have an attorney. Nobody depends on them because you're the prosecutor and the judge and the jury, and all you do is criticize, 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 criticize. And then, of course, you're the judge. Well, yes, that person is guilty. And you're the jury. Yes, they're guilty. Death penalty. I never speak to them. It's like, we're so silly sometimes, aren't we? So silly.
If I can just add a point, because this is something that happened to me, I was really reluctant to do something that one of the seniors was asking me, and they did something very, very wise and very skillful. They made me feel that there was no negative consequences. They asked something, but there was no expectation. If I was saying no, that would be totally fine, and I said no, and they said okay, and they left very happily and peacefully. And that got my attention because I was prepared to be very defensive and say no, but then they were super cool about it and they left out. So I'm the one who went back and said, I would like to help with that. That day I said, okay, that's the way to do it. When I have someone to ask to someone who usually would say no, I come with no expectation, making them feel that it's an open-ended question and lots of freedom. If you don't want to come, that's perfectly fine. That works. That worked with me. Yeah.
Also, another way to deal with these things is to have humor. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves, and it's so important to laugh at ourselves.
A lack of humour that sustains that kind of environment.
Yeah, it's humor, and nobody laughs, and they should laugh. They should really relax and laugh. Because I'm relaxed, I want to laugh. Have you ever noticed it's always other people's fault? Always. Me is never me. It's always them. Isn't it? Always. Yeah, I'm sweet, innocent, benevolent. I want to communicate. I want to be your friend. It's you. Woo. Okay. Another thing I learned. I was talking about ordination order. Okay. So, with Copan and Tushita and everything same. So one of the people that I sat next to in our ordination order, who I was going to be sitting next to for the next 3 countless great eons. She was somebody who had a big problem with anger. And sometimes the lay people would say, oh, that nun is so angry. And other people would say, well, you should have known her before she started practicing. That's how angry she was. So she and I were organizing the 1996 event together. Yeah, we were organizing this together and always sitting next to each other. We weren't getting along, okay? We got along on some things, but there were some things, oh my goodness. So some things she did, I just let go. I didn't put up a fight because she really wanted to do things this way. I didn't think it was necessary or a wise use of finance, but okay, she has her ideas. You have to, let go of some things. So, okay, that's okay. So then I thought about, what do you do in your when you're in your sadhanas? Yeah, when you're doing a long sadhana. You offer a torma at the beginning to the spirits, and you offer a torma at the end. So I thought, okay, I'm going to offer tormas to her. Now, I didn't make, it out of sampa with a butter thing, and I didn't go, no, I did Western style torma. Here, I got some chocolate. Here, I'd like to give, have some chocolate. Yeah, I just shared my chocolate with her. And I said thank you when she did things well. Yeah. And it really smoothed over the relationship a lot. Yeah. It's amazing. If you try, there's little things you can do. But if you have the idea, well, it's just like that, there's nothing to do, then there's nothing to do, not because of the other person, but because of us. We're saying there's nothing to do. We're saying we don't get along and you have to come to me and apologize to me first. Yeah? When's that going to happen? I mean, it would really be so nice if they're crawling on their hands and knees up to you, beating themselves. Oh, couple me. Oh, it was all my fault. I apologize. And you could sit there and go, yes, it is your fault. I hope you learn. Yeah, that would be nice. But when's that going to happen? That's not going to happen. You can wait 3 countless great eons. They're not going to come and apologize. Yeah? So you have to be the person who starts it. Yeah. But then our ego gets like, it's really their fault, but I'm going to start it. Okay. Then that's the time when you need to be practicing the Dharma. Yeah? Here's one sentient being that I have totally blocked from my field of compassion. Yeah. If I block them from my field of compassion, from my field of bodhicitta, I will not become a Buddha. Because if it's bodhicitta has to be for every single sentient being. If you leave one out, you're harming yourself. You're harming your own practice. Yeah? So, okay, you want to harm your own practice? That's fine. Go ahead. It's not my business. But personally speaking, I don't want to get stuck in that trap. Yeah? And so, yeah, then you just have to mellow a little bit and, give somebody else some space, give yourself some space. But really look, chapter 6 of Shantideva that was my go-to text for everything. Because if you people think you have a hard problem with other people, Lama sent me to be the gay-goo of the macho Italian monks. Okay? Anybody want to be? Yeah, don't tell them. They already know. But you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm supposed to be the gay-goo of these macho men who are monks, and I was just a Getsulma at that point, yeah. And boy, did I get angry. You know, they were so rude, so obnoxious. They picked on me. They were so mean. It was all their fault. And I would, yeah, right, yeah, definitely. They should change. Oh, so bad, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But, you know, after a while, you get tired of being angry. And you get tired of having a closed heart. It's not fun. It's not fun to hold a grudge against somebody. It's really an uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. So every night I would go back, read some part of chapter 6, meditate on it, applying it to what happened that day. You know, next day I feel much better, go out there, something else would happen. They do something else. Come back that night, more to chapter 6. Okay, calm down. So this went on, yeah. But I tell you, before Lama sent me there, I didn't think I had a problem with anger. Yeah, I didn't have a problem with anger. I don't throw things. I don't scream at anybody. Yeah, I don't have a problem with anger. So the only way I was going to get it through my dull head was for Lama to send me there. And boy, did I learn I had a problem with anger. And Shanti Deva was what I had to go to. Yeah.
So what's the end of the story?
Oh, what's the end of the story? Well, now, no anger. The end of the story with that person was after they threatened to call Lama and tell Lama that I was the worst person that ever came to this Dharma center and I was ruining everything. After he said he was going to call Lama and tell that, I said, okay. And then soon after, I had an opportunity on the phone to talk to Lama. I said, Lama, can I leave here? Lama said, we'll discuss it, dear. I'll be there in 6 months. Will I make it 6 months? You know. Well, yeah, I made it 6 months, and then he said I could leave. And then, see, there wasn't just one person. It was several. I mean, it was macho Italian monks, plural. Yeah. But one of them, the one that I really clashed with, okay, then one time we were at Tushita and we were both going to the water thing, you know, we had to pump water. And we kind of accidentally bumped into each other there. And we looked at each other and there was this feeling of, yeah, we both saw that we were both sorry that all of that happened. We didn't say a word, but I could tell by the look on his face, and I think he could tell by the look on my face. Yeah. At the Abbey, we talk about bossy bhikshunis. Yeah, here's one of them. She's bossing me around. It is 3:48 and I have to go back. I have a curfew. So one thing how we use humor is one time I was talking to the monks. You were there, I think, at the time. And yeah, they said, oh, some of these bhikshunis are so bossy. These were the junior bhikshunis, not the senior ones. You know, and they said, that's so bossy. So after that, I started joking that, you know, oh yeah, we have a whole crew of bossy bhikshunis here. Yeah, the BBs. And, you know, you laugh about it. You make something funny about it so that we can laugh at it ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. Venerable Wu Yin, you'll remember, yeah, she had us do skits.
Yeah, I wanted to talk actually about that.
Yeah.
This is quite nice. I wonder how you got to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we do skits. at like at the end of a retreat, we will do skits, and now people know how to do it. But we just now I just say, okay, we're going to do skits, and get yourself organized. You can, do it alone. You can do it with one person, two person, three persons, and you can do as many skits as you want. And then they get together and they plan it. And we give people about an hour and a half to plan their skits, and then we have certain props available if they need it. And then we, have the skits in the afternoon. And it's hilarious because the thing is, when you live in community, everybody knows what's going on with other people. You try and hide it. Everybody knows if you're in a bad mood. Everybody knows if you're a fussy person, So you go there and you make fun of each other and you make fun of yourself. And it's hilarious. We have such a good time.
Is it not like offensive?
The only person who ever got offended was one person who was kind of volunteering for us, and she got very offended. But aside from that, nobody gets offended, do they? Yeah, because we know each other well. So this is something, it builds up over time. Yeah, but especially you try and make fun of yourself. Yeah, but yeah, and then everybody laughs, and it's so much fun. Yeah. I even remember the ones from 1996. Yeah, they were so good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And again, so all these kinds of things that you do together, whether you're offering service and working on a project together or doing a skit or whatever, it brings you together with other people. And that's part of our practice. Mm-hmm.